In the game of life and death, there are the amateurs, and then there are the experts. Their speciality is being one step ahead of the opposition. And the one to be most afraid of is the lethal loner. Working solo, tracking, planning, waiting. For the perfect moment to strike. This is nature's assassin, and it's made killing into an art form. With the victim selected, it can hit 70 kilometers an hour in just 3 seconds. Once it's locked on, it's a lethal guided missile, able to track a twisting target at phenomenal speed. It was just a normal journey, one he'd made 100 times before. But tonight, something was different. He couldn't say exactly what, but something was not quite right. It's a tough life for a spring hare. You mind your own business, but all the time you've got to be careful. Got to be watching your back. And the one you need to watch for is this guy, the caracal. It was a classic ambush. Hit from behind, he never stood a chance. The perfect ambush is totally unexpected. With a green kingfisher, there is no warning that a strike is imminent. The tetras are on the lookout for danger coming from the water, not for airborne attackers. Like an air-to-surface missile, the Kingfisher can track its target on the way down and adjust its aim to strike through the water, compensating for the distortion at the air-water interface. For a lone hunter to succeed in low-light conditions, it needs formidable skills to find and follow prey. The spotted owl can lock on to the slightest movement, accurately judging distances and angles of attack in almost complete darkness. The owl's eyes are so large and complex that they cannot be moved independently. Instead, the bird swivels its whole head to train them onto the target. And once it has the range, it can strike to the nearest millimeter. The Grumeti River is a source of life, but also of death. Every year, the migration brings hundreds of thousands of wildebeest to the banks of this river. But it's a bottleneck and the perfect place for an ambush. To avoid starvation, the wildebeest have to reach the short, sweet grasses on the other side, a fact that the crocodiles have come to depend on. In this ambush, everything is in the crocodile's favor. Murky water is ideal for getting in close without being spotted. While they put off the actual crossing, the wildebeest still have to drink. But they know that even doing that could prove fatal. The wildebeest can run, but they will have to come back. They know it, and the crocodiles know it too. Like the crocodile, this lethal loner is stealthy, but it also uses the weapon of disguise. The leaf fish might not be very good at swimming, but it is very good at being a leaf. And with camouflage as convincing as this, there's no problem about getting in close. Camouflage is all about getting the opposition to see what it expects to see, and there are dozens of creatures which have that down to a fine art. The pippa toad is so well camouflaged that it can hide out in the open, which puts it just where it wants to be. Right next to its prey. Whatever style you choose, if the performance is good enough, then everything else falls into place. Seeing becomes believing, and there's no end to the possibilities. Often, the more there is to look at, the easier it is to hide. Disguise can be very effective. And this potu is going to pretend to be a tree stump for as long as possible. But if the snake really won't fall for it, the potu can always resort to something more basic. A loner must depend totally on its own resources, and that means having all the equipment needed for survival. This is the world's largest lizard, twice the weight of a man. The Komodo dragon has the weapons to make a meal out of just about anything. Presentation and food quality are all very well, but some diners just aren't interested in the niceties. If it's meat, the dragon will devour it. And that includes smaller members of its own species. We like to use tools to break down flesh, but the dragon will rip through a carcass in no time. An adult can eat almost its own weight in food at one sitting. To add to the dragon's armory, it has toxic saliva. An untreated bite means certain death from poisoning. So if the teeth don't get you, the mouth bacteria will. Put teeth, claws and raw power together in a different combination, and you get the North American grizzly bear. Normally these are solitary hunters, but once the salmon start migrating, all bears head for the water. Each year, newcomers must learn the tricks from an expert. About the weight of a small car, the adult grizzly suggests power rather than agility. But in fact, it has both. Grizzlies are quite at home in the water. As consummate all-rounders, they can vary their tactics to cope with all sorts of situations. The bear's teeth can deal with almost any type of food, and its claws are just as versatile. So every year that makes for a massacre of the salmon and a feast for the bears. The record catch for one bear is 88 fish in a day. The harsher the environment, the scarcer the prey, like these seals, becomes. So, how to find it? The problem is the same for bear and fox alike. The adult polar bear has more than its fair share of claws and teeth, But before it can use them, it first has to find its prey. To be successful, the bear must hunt alone, staking out a seal's breathing hole and waiting for its return. The fox, meanwhile, has struck lucky with a deep frozen carcass. Catching seals is 1% extreme force and 99% patience. But what bear can sit still when there's a whiff of meat in the air? An acute sense of smell is vital for surviving in such an unforgiving landscape. The bear can detect food at a distance of several kilometers, so this carrion will be no problem to track down. A hunter prepares for takeoff. Carrying sophisticated onboard echolocation equipment, the fishing bat can detect the slightest disturbance at the water's surface. After a successful mission, it's back to base to refuel. Just finding your prey isn't enough. The next problem is how to get inside. If at first you don't succeed, the obvious thing is just to try harder. It's all a matter of finding the right tool for the right job. This time, the South American tailor is out of luck. The sea otters of Monterey Bay, California, have considerably more success. One of the favorite animals on their menu is the heavily armored spider crab. The otter's teeth and claws won't break through this shell, but it knows where to get something that will. With just enough force, in just the right places, the otter can crack through the armor and get at the gourmet meal inside. But that's only part of the otter's repertoire. Harder-shelled prey like clams require a slightly different approach. This time the stone stays on the otter's chest, while the clam is pounded into submission against it. Although it's a complex skill, it's not inborn, so the young otters must pick it up in their turn by learning alongside their parents. Being the fastest thing on 4 legs is no use when you're up against an ostrich egg. To crack this particular problem, you need to have developed a special technique. Like any expert, the Egyptian vulture must first assess the scale of the task ahead of it. The tawny eagle doesn't have the vulture's advanced skills, but it's happy to watch while the vulture does all the work. First, a practice shot or two. And then it's time for the real thing. With this much food on offer, even the unskilled eagle will get a look in. Exit Stone Age techniques. Enter sophisticated chemical weaponry. The western diamondback rattlesnake is a poisoner. Its chosen target, the blood supply of its victims. Pits either side of the snake's face detect the heat of its warm-blooded prey. A highly refined cocktail fit to make blood boil is squeezed along ducts either side of the snake's head. Once delivered to the razor-sharp fangs, the snake is ready to strike. The rattlesnake can now follow the cottonmouse at its leisure. With the poison coursing through its veins, the victim suffers intense pain, swelling and tissue damage. Death is inevitable. Poison can be an exquisitely varied weapon. Why deliver a quick death when a slow one has so many more possibilities? The jewel wasp injects the cockroach with a venom that will immobilize the wing and leg muscles without affecting the heart. It also bites off its antennae, leaving it stunned and blinded. What the jewel wasp has in mind is a burial, but a burial with a difference. The cockroach is powerless to resist, as the much smaller predator leads it to a fate worse than death. The cockroach will die, but very slowly. The jewel wasp needs a large, fresh source of food for its growing larva. Incarcerated and paralyzed, the cockroach will be eaten alive, mouthful by mouthful. Eventually, the newly formed wasp breaks out of the disemboweled body. Once it reaches the outside world, the whole deadly cycle can start all over again. They may look like harmless plants, but they're actually poisonous animals. Each strand of these anemones is loaded with thousands of nematocysts, tiny stinging cells, harpoons tipped with a poisoned barb. But there is one specialist that finds all that killing power quite irresistible. This flamboyant individual is a collector of poisons. The nudibranch is immune to the anemone's poison, so it can slurp down the whole thing. Most of it is digested, but the stinging cells are left untouched, to become part of the nudibranch's own defenses. The bright color is a warning that this creature, also known as the Spanish dancer, is best given a wide berth. There are simpler ways to make use of another animal's poison. The decorator crab likes to travel, but it also likes to fit in. When it moves in somewhere new, a bit of friendly tickling is required to win over the locals. All the crab wants is to borrow them for a while. And once it has one or two on board, it's well on the way to becoming part of the scenery. At first sight, the fire-bellied toad appears harmless, but looks can be deceptive. And there are always going to be those who are on the lookout for an easy target.
Mate, yeah.
But in fact, the toad is toxic and has the upper hand.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
A misunderstanding could be fatal, so the warning must be clear and to the point. Red spells danger. And the display is enough to frighten off would-be attackers. The bottom line for most creatures is that if you are poisonous, it's worth letting everyone else know about it before they try and eat you. There is a way of bringing even the most venomous animals to a sticky end. With a web, a lone predator can be in several places at once and manage to restrain their prey before they can do any damage. The beauty of letting the glue do the work for you is that the more they struggle, the more they stick. Although the black widow spider has venom 15 times more powerful than a rattlesnake, it's the web that's disarmed the scorpion. The orb-web spider works with a golden silk, coated with droplets of glue. If necessary, it can weave a completely new web each night. Its silk is deliciously versatile, strong enough to ensnare the victim and yet flexible enough to alert the weaver. Stretched out on a rack of the finest quality, the wasp is quite unable to bring its own weapon into play. The world of solitary sticky predators also has its mass killers. However unlikely it might seem, the echidna is one of them. As well as being an egg-laying mammal and an ancient life form, it's a master termite catcher. Once it's located a rich enough pocket, it's ready to do some damage. The tube-like snout houses a remarkable tongue up to 18 centimeters long and highly sticky. By shooting the tongue in and out past spines on the roof of its mouth, the echidna can get through industrial quantities of termites in just a few minutes. Nesting 20 feet up ought to make for a quieter life for termites. But another specialist has evolved to plague them up here. The tamandua hunts alone using an acute sense of smell. A powerful tail helps it work its way around. Its claws are sharp enough to shred the bark to get at the termites beneath. A tamandua will harvest termites from many different nests. Although its mouth is only the width of a pencil, the tongue is covered in sticky saliva and minute spines, perfect for loading termites fast. An adult tamandua can get through 9,000 termites in a day. Of all the sticky hunters, the most enigmatic has to be the chameleon. Each eye gets to do its own thing. And the tongue is just something else. To hit a target with a sticky tongue or a jet of water calls for a sharp shooter. Archerfish can gun down an ant from 3 meters. It's as well to remember that anything used in attack may also be used in defense. The skunk is a case in point. This puma is young and inexperienced. Attacking a skunk is a mistake you make only once. Its spray will turn any predator's stomach, and the smell can linger for up to a year. Unlike the smell, the skunk doesn't hang around. Sometimes, to get out of trouble, you have to make sacrifices. And when you're really up against it, something has to give. It's a win-win situation. The scorpion gets a meal, and the lizard can always grow a new tail. For the Brazilian hatchetfish, staying out of trouble is a matter of split-second timing. For them, the best place to be when danger strikes is well out of harm's way. Their technique depends on hugely developed pectoral fins, strong enough to launch them right out of the water. if necessary, time and time again. Out in the Namib Desert, it can be hard to hide, so the blue weevil will resort to the oldest trick in the book if spotted by a predator. As elegant as it is simple, playing dead is often enough to confuse a hunter's instincts. If it's not moving, then maybe it's not food. And because the trick doesn't take much energy, there's no limit to how many times you can use it. The octopus has its fair share of tricks, and it needs them, alone in a world of lethal assassins. Changing colour might fool some predators, but not the moray eel. Squirting ink only provides a decoy, so once the eel has locked on, it's useless. At least losing a leg is not fatal. There are still 7 left. In spite of all the challenges to staying alive as an adult, the young just keep on coming. These black-footed albatross fledglings have survived their first few weeks on land and will soon be taking to the air. Learning to fly is exhausting, but at least they'll have a soft landing and a chance to gather their strength. The hardest lesson of them all is that wherever you are, there is always a lethal loner waiting for its chance.